Hello and welcome to Queer Cinema Catchup's recap and discussion of Yellowjackets Season 3, Episode 5, Did Tai Do That? To start, I'm going to give a little recap of the episode. We'll begin with our girls out in the wilderness. They, in the previous episode, have sentenced Coach Scott Ben to die, but now they have to figure out how to do it. Shauna, in classic intense, violent fashion, says, let's burn him to death, as that's what he allegedly, although I guess now he's been convicted, wanted to do to us. Melissa, who's trying to be with Shauna, backs her up, but the other girls say that that's too, that would be like torture, and so they come to the conclusion that they need to do it by firing squad. As is their custom, they decide to draw a card to determine who will have to pull the trigger, and they use the King of Hearts. Van calls it the suicide card, and Tai pulls the card. This leads to a plot line in this episode where Tai and Van are trying to prepare Tai to do this shooting, and Tai finds it very overwhelming to have to look her coach in the eye and pull the trigger. And Van wonders if it might be easier if they could access Dark Tai, aka Sleepwalking Tai, the version of Tai who, when she falls asleep, wakes up as a more self-assured, determined, and potentially violent individual who's also haunted by the eyeless man that we've seen in previous episodes. Van thinks that sex might be able to bring out Dark Tai, and why she thinks that I'm not entirely clear on, as I don't remember there being any sequence in the past where that triggered Dark Tai before. That doesn't seem to work, so then they end up killing a rabbit, and Van reminds Tai to stay present in the act of killing and to really listen to the wilderness and the animal as it dies, and she is the cause of that death. That does not appear to work either. Meanwhile, some of our other girls and Travis, Akilah, and Lottie go back to the cave to try and get Akilah to experience another vision. And she does experience a vision just as the girls are preparing to shoot Ben. Tai is ready. The gun is pointed at Ben. Ben is begging for his life. He even says, how can you do this to me? You know me. I'm Ben. I'm your coach. What kind of monsters have you become? Tai seems ready to do it. She still seems herself, but then at the very last moment, she locks in and it seems like Dark Tai might have emerged. Meanwhile, Akilah is having a vision in the cave of standing on a cliffside, and suddenly we realize she's standing on a gigantic version of Ben, and she's able to walk across him where she encounters the sound of cars honking. She comes to and tells Lottie and Travis that she's seen something. They rush back just in time to save Coach Ben, saying, we can't kill him, he's our bridge, aka he's our bridge back to civilization, to safety. It's a little bit unclear. And so Ben survives, but Shauna and Melissa, seemingly with the okay of the rest of the group, enter Ben's sort of like pen where he's been staying with the other animals and maim his other leg, ensuring that he can't go anywhere, leading Natalie to tell Shauna, you don't have to take so much pleasure in this, and Shauna retorts by saying you don't have to be such a saint about everything. So that's what the girls have been up to. Meanwhile, the adults are going on their silly little adventures that I don't know, that aren't always my favorite parts of the episodes, even though the actresses are amazing. We have the Shauna, oh my gosh, the names. We have Shauna, Misty, and Tai and Van together. Misty tells them that Lottie has died. In the contrast to the past, where they're bringing their hands about an impending death that they need to bring about, they kind of shrug. It's part of their experience to confront death on quite frequently. And they kind of go about their lives. Misty goes into citizen detective mode. She's going to try and figure out what has happened to Lottie. Shauna kind of gets ripped up into that as well because she encounters Walter, who encourages her to help him discover what's going wrong so he can kind of get back with Misty. They both very improbably end up at Lottie's father's home where Lottie was apparently staying. Misty uses kind of the guise of, I'm a neighbor and I need something, so sorry for your loss, to get inside. And Walter and Shauna pose as internet technicians, which they were in hilarious matching outfits. Like, I quite enjoyed seeing them doing this, but the reality of this man letting both of these people into his house at the same time just didn't make any sense to me, which I'll come back to in a little bit. Meanwhile, Van and Tai, Van wonders where Tai was, if it's possible she could have killed Lottie. Tai thinks that's, silly, denies it, and then they end up meeting up with Tai's ex-wife, Simone, and their son, Sammy, in the park, which is great because these characters have been absent for quite a while, which also feels a little unrealistic. But it doesn't go very well. Sammy asks Tai, "Are you still my mommy?" And Tai says, "I'll always be your mommy." And Sammy does not seem to react well to this and wants to leave. Perhaps he's seen a shadow of somebody else in his mom, aka Dark Tai. That's kind of an open question. And the episode ends for them with Tai saying that she needs to get out of this house and would Van come with her to a destination unknown. So that's kind of the plot summary of what's been going on this episode. Here are the couple reactions that I have. There was a lot that was happening in this episode that was very interesting in terms of queer representation. We have Yellowjackets linking queer sex to this dark version of Tai, the darkness, which is an interesting suggestion. I don't know how I feel about that. It depends on where it goes, because linking queerness with darkness is a choice. And what it might be saying about queer identity and queer representation remains to be seen. On the flip side of that, we have Ben, who is sort of this bridge to civilization. He's retained his humanity, and he's begging the girls to snap back into who they really are. But they've kind of crossed over. They're too far gone. They are of the wilderness now. And so we have another queer character who's kind of holding up social norms, a tie to humanity that kind of pushes back against this idea that queerness is associated with the dark. But then to complicate it even further, we have Melissa and Shauna, and they have a couple interesting scenes as their relationship continues to develop. Melissa approaches Shauna, and Shauna says, "Why do you even like me?" And Melissa says, "Well, you say that as if there's something like of you to like, which I get. You know, Jackie treated you terribly. Jeff acted like you were a dirty little secret, but I like that you now are not afraid of the worst parts of yourself or the dark parts of yourself." I can't remember the exact phrasing. And then Shauna then repeats this to Melissa when they go to maim Ben. Shauna's holding the knife, but she gives it to Melissa and says, "You do it." Melissa says, "I can't." Shauna says, "Yes, you can. You need to learn to like the dark parts of yourself as well." And then it is Melissa who actually slashes Ben's leg. And so all of this to say there is some kind of connection between violence, danger, dark confidence, the wilderness, wildness, whatever word you want to put in there, that kind of represents all that the wilderness and the way the girls are behaving out in the woods with queer identity and queerness. And so I'll kind of save my opinion on that to the end of the season, but I do think it's something to track, and then to remember that Ben is kind of the counterpoint here. And maybe Simone and Sammy are also kind of the counterpart to that as well. Given that they have been absent from the story, but they are Tai's family, Tai's tie to sort of a more heteronormative approach to living in the world with a wife and a child. So just something to track and think about. And then I guess I'll end with kind of my review of the episode. I think this one was stronger than the previous episode. It still maybe has a little bit of it's a little flawed for me, and I think it's because the adult storyline does feel a little bit unbelievable. Sometimes the way the characters are acting don't make sense to me. I don't believe that Mr. Matthews, even though it suggests that he might be losing his memory, would let these people just into his home right after the death of his daughter. I don't believe that they would kind of bat their eyes at the fact that Lottie has passed away, and then kind of try and figure it out, but in a sort of silly way. It just feels a little bit off to me. But there was a commenter who left a theory, and my co-host, who's not joining me on these recaps, and I were talking about it, and we've begun to wonder if the adult storyline is actually not as real as we think it is. Is there a world in which the girls are imagining their future out there in the wilderness, and it's a teenage version of what adult life might be like, still marred by the death and the mystery that they experience out in the woods? And is there a chance that we'll discover the adults are actually still stuck out there and have been stuck out there the entire time? That to me is a really creepy, disturbing, unsettling idea, but I kind of like it. Would that be too much like, is this a dream, all a dream, a bit of a twist? I don't know. Let me know what you think. Please give me your other theories, your other thoughts. If this was a yay or a nay episode for you, and what you think about the queer representation in the show. Okay, thanks so much. Bye.